With just over 2 weeks to go before the Chicago Bears make their first round selections, we're all waiting until time passes enough that the Bears pick their direction. I know Nick's feeling it. I know I'm feeling it. But we got a great show for you today with some talk about Keenan Allen, trades at number 9, and what the Bears' direction is going to be in this upcoming draft. It's all coming at you on this episode of Bear With Us. What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to Bear With Us, a Chicago Bears podcast hosted by yours truly, Robert Schmitz, editor-in-chief of Da Bears blog, right here with my co-host, Nick Whalen of Football Guys. And Nick, I'm going to use a metaphor that it sounds like you are becoming very, very well acquainted with. This period right here is starting to feel like that period, a couple weeks before you get married, where you're way too deep into this to uncommit. You know you're committed. You even like where you're going, but you're not close enough to really get into that groove of we're about to get married. You still have one more week of normal life where everybody expects you to just be who you were. You know what I'm saying? Like this, it feels like it's the week before draft week.
Is that because I'm getting married? You're making that reference, Robert?
It actually appeared to me as I was driving home before we were going to do this show of that's how I'm feeling. It reminded me of right before I got married, where it's like, and I mean, hey, look, if you wanted to really extrapolate this, the Bears are probably picking a new quarterback. They're almost certainly picking a new quarterback in Caleb Williams. Right. And in that, everybody uses the marriage metaphor for a reason, that there's a long-term relationship between the Chicago Bears and Caleb Williams that's likely about to start. But it's just funny to me, 15, 16 days out from it, how we get to sit here and be like, okay, so do we still want Rome at number 9? Is Rome going to get to number 9? Right. And everything therein.
Well, I'm just like thinking of more scenarios, watching more film, like just waiting. Like, it's like, I could do this right now. But it reminds me a little bit like a different scenarios would be like when you have like 2 weeks left of school. So like summer break is like not right there, but like, it's a little ways away. Or like your little kid waiting for Christmas. You're like, oh, come on. Like, why is there so many days in December, So it's,
that's a great way of putting it.
But today, Robert, did you watch the 1920 football video that got released today?
So I haven't made it to it yet, but what did you see in there?
Well, so here's just something I think that's interesting. Something small within the video. Like it talks about the free agent signings and polls, very scripted. And, you see some of the new players and stuff. There was one literally like 3-second thing that I was like, it really got me a little excited.
Okay.
So you remember Caleb Williams' pro day, right?
Of course.
Keenan Allen shows up in Bears gear. And I don't remember any other players there but Keenan. Now, again, he went to Cal, right? In LA with the Chargers. I get it, right? But you tell me no one else lives in LA, or has a home out there? Like, he decided to show up. I'm like, okay. In this video, there's one quick picture, and I don't know if it's like a picture for the Bears or what it was for, but there's Keenan and his wife and all of his kids all in Bears gear already. And I'm like, man, this guy, like, he's all in. It's because some people were like, well, what if he doesn't like it here? And what if, he can like say no to the trade? He's doing all of that. And it made me think of this, okay? The Bears have to either extend him or take a receiver at 9. They can't not extend him and not take a receiver at 9. Are you with me on that?
I think so. I mean, granted, you and I, now Nick has planned the show and he hasn't told me what's in the show. So we're going to unwrap this like a big old present, right? But Nick, when it comes to receiver at 9, my big question is whether one's going to get there. I don't know. Right. If you ask me, and I also haven't reviewed The Beast. Gosh, I'm behind. That just dropped today.
The Beast is amazing.
Of course, it's amazing.
How can you get through it all? It's like, well, I'm going to give a shout out to my company, Matt Waldman. I have his RSP. That's like 1,000, 1,500 pages. Like, I can't get through all of it,
No, of course not. And do you know where Brugler had Odunze in The Beast?
I only got through. I'm going through quarterbacks right now because I just like it all. I haven't even got to running backs or anything else yet.
Totally. More to say that It would shock me, Nick, if at this point Rome Odunze isn't the consensus 6th or 7th best player in the draft.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
if he's going to get to number 9 in the first place, you need a stroke of luck. So I'm right there with you where Keenan, let's get back to Keenan on this. Keenan is probably either getting an extension or the Bears are picking at 9 or both. But what you're bringing up that I hadn't thought about, Nick, is twofold, right? Number one, as much as you and I would make a joke about it, for once, Keenan gets to take his family to a city where being a football star means something. I
Yep.
know we could joke about that, and any fan, I hope you know listening that I am more analytical about what happens on a football field than vibes and emotions. But this is vibe and emotion season. Like that's what this is, right, Nick? Because the other thing, I don't know about you, but the craziest part to me about Tom Brady's story throughout his entire lexicon of what he did on a football field was the fact that there just aren't that many people alive that can win 6 Super Bowls, change teams, call your shot, and still think somebody doubts you enough to have a chip on your shoulder
Yep.
that you need to prove somebody wrong. Like
Mhm.
Aaron Rodgers, been an awfully long time since he won his Super Bowl. I can actually understand where his chip comes from. How did Brady become the unquestioned GOAT and still want to play again?
Yep.
Keenan Allen has spent his entire career with this franchise. And they decided that Khalil Mack, he was worth paying. And Joey Bosa, he was worth paying.
Yep.
But Keenan Allen, no, we can let you go. And as much as I know that may not make his hamstrings, made of adamantium. That may not be the reason that he's amazing. That won't stop Father Time, Nick. But I don't know if we talk quite enough about how you want to talk about a chip on your shoulder season. Like, you gotta think Keenan Allen he's got a chip with plenty of dip on it, right?
Well, one quote he has in his video is he's like, I always like to be the quarterback's best friend. Well, shows up to the pro day, right? Wants to be best friends. He wants the targets. He wants like you're talking about chip on your shoulder, but I think a lot of people are like, okay, DJ Moore, wide receiver 1, Keenan Allen, wide receiver 2. Keenan Allen could be the wide receiver 1, and DJ could be the wide receiver 2. Like this could go a lot of different scenarios. And you're right, because he didn't play bad last year. Last year, arguably, was one of his best seasons he's had. And so
he actually said that.
You go right, and you go through this, and you're like, in my mind, I like exactly what you're saying. Does a receiver get to 109? Maybe this is what Chicago's plan is. Okay, we sit, we wait. Who comes at 109? If one of those guys are there, we take them. If not, we trade down and then we extend Keenan, because that way it saves both of you. I mean, like you can go, like if you extend him now and then Rome gets there, people are like, oh, that's a waste of resources. If you wait until after the draft to extend him, it makes a lot of sense.
I agree. I mean, not to mention, I think everybody in the Bears organization is just waiting on a little bit of clarity when it comes to that. I also want to just point out, Nick, that so the clarity thing, I'll finish that point first, where the Bears want to know if they did get the chance to draft a receiver at number 9 or not. That much is pretty clear, right? Where if you're going to re-sign Keenan, you're going to re-sign him with Rome Odunze and or Malik Neighbors in the picture, or you're going to re-sign him without them in the picture. And those change his leverage quite drastically. Nick, the other thing I think maybe we aren't thinking about, you have to think DJ Moore and his agent are monitoring this situation very closely. And if I was the Bears, I might want to wait as long as I could to get a deal like this done, just because the moment I get one done with Keenan, well, now DJ Moore is going to want his extension.
Well, yeah, but we talked about this on the last podcast. Mm-hmm. I'm fine with that. You do it now before Jefferson, Aiyuk, et cetera, get 27, 28, 20, 30, 32 million a year. It might be advantageous to do it. Hey, cool. They're both re-signed or extended by May 5th.
Mm-hmm. And I hope they are. That would be neat. I think being able to gift wrap a receiver core like this to Caleb Williams would be really something. And speaking of, Nick, look, I don't want to direct anything. Look, I'm going to bring up a topic that everybody's going to know where it came from. Okay? Everybody's going to know. And I need everybody to know that this analyst rules. I think I just disagree with him on what a wide receiver 1 is. Am I allowed to ask you, Nick, do you think DJ Moore is a field tilting wide receiver one? Or do you think that do you think that the Bears receiver room doesn't have a top guy?
So this is my problem with a lot of these sayings. A wide receiver one should be a top 32 receiver in the NFL. And a franchise quarterback, that's literally a starting quarterback in the NFL. You know what I mean? Like your definitions could be different. It sounded like this certain analyst who we haven't named yet, his definition was a top 8 to 10 receiver that defenses had to give a ton of attention to. And in my mind, PFF said DJ Moore was 10, Keenan Allen was 11 last year. So I definitely saw Keenan Allen get 200 some yards on the Vikings. We talked about this. Like, if that's not a lot of defensive attention, and we saw Moore do it against Washington, should have had 4 touchdowns. I don't really know what is. I know Jefferson and some of these guys are at different levels, but both of those guys command tons of attention and are wide receiver ones, in my opinion.
I agree. In general, I think Allen might be losing his wide receiver one designation, though, like you're talking about, based on your definition, top 32, obviously they're both wide receiver ones, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean that very seriously.
Yeah.
Even according to JT O'Sullivan's definition, because that's who we're talking about, I find it hard to say that DK Metcalf is a wide receiver one, but DJ Moore is not a wide receiver one. I think DJ is the big one. Keenan, you know what? You want to call him a superstar wide receiver two? I don't know what you'd call that. That feels really icky coming out of my mouth. But you want to call him a role player that just happens to play his role on almost every down, Nick? Okay, fine. I can give you that one. But DJ Moore, so to me, I'm going to speak your language here for a moment, Nick. The part about DJ that I think gets understated, and this has happened in Chicago for the last 5-10 years at this point. Chicago is such a poor year to year to year passing offense that passing statistics in Chicago that are absolutely gaudy don't make it out of the city. Because when DJ Moore catches 1,300 yards, that is 39.9% of the Chicago Bears passing yardage total in 2023. I looked this up. That's a bigger total than Jamar Chase. That's a bigger total than nearly any receiver. CeeDee Lamb, Justin Jefferson, pick up nearly anybody. And actually, I don't know if it was Justin, if you account for Justin's specific yards per game, but that's not surprising.
That one's tougher. Yeah.
But it was so funny going through this list of wide receiver ones, clear wide receiver ones, dudes, dogs, and DJ has a higher yards per game percentage than most receivers in the league. His team just passed for 3,600 yards, whereas every other team passed for closer to 45, 47. And I find it hard to believe that JT would say DJ isn't a wide receiver one if he caught 1,600 yards, which is what it would scale up to in a normal passing offense. But I know it's only the fantasy guys that talk about what target share and like value and all the other stuff where I think DJ really proved himself.
Right. And the other part of this whole thing was like, okay, and I've seen other people have posted this too. Why get a wide receiver at 9 when you just got Keenan Allen? Because they're not thinking of Allen's on a 1-year deal, right? Do you want to shell out that much money, or do you want to save the money on a rookie contract with a receiver at 109? Right. There's a lot to it. And I don't think it's you take a wide receiver at 9 because DJ Moore isn't good or Keenan Allen isn't good or they're not wide receiver ones. It's because you have, I mean, I can't even fathom, Robert, if you got one of those receivers at 9, a wide receiver core like this. Like, I'm not sure we've ever seen one like this. Because if you compared it to what the Bengals had, sure, Chase is probably he's a level above DJ Moore, but Allen is sure a heck of a lot better than T. Higgins has been, and then rookie better than Tyler Boyd. Yep, I would say so and I like Tyler Boyd. It's not a slight to him, but I can never remember 3 receivers being that good. I mean, unless you go back to like the Vikings when they had Moss, Carter, and Jake Reed. Maybe. I don't know. It's tough.
It's also funny because, like you're talking about, I can't help but think that there's, I don't know, Nick. It's like on one hand, I could talk about name brands, on another hand, I could talk about how is it not obvious why you would add a third receiver to this? You're talking about a guy who's hurt a lot. We
Right.
love Keenan Allen. We're so excited about Keenan Allen. He did get traded for a fourth round pick. It's not as if he was even valued at a second round pick. So everybody is aware of what Keenan's value is right now, and it's short term. And not only that, it's a player whose injury history is pretty colorful. All this is fine. I don't think it makes the Keenan Allen move a bad one. Do you, Nick? But I also think that if you grabbed a receiver at number 9, Ryan Poles could easily make the argument that it's a move for 2026 because that's what's good in the draft.
Right, yeah.
But it's also a move for if and when one of your major wide receivers misses time, and now you want to make sure that Caleb Williams and Shane Waldron have enough weapons in the armory. I mean, it is so funny, isn't it? How on one hand, we want every quarterback in the league to get as many weapons as possible until they do, and then we generally start discounting them for it. And we start saying, well, he does have Justin Jefferson and, Jordan Addison or let me use Nick Whalen speak. Nothing he did was hard. And Matt LaFleur made everything so easy. He has an offensive line that blocked everything, and all those receivers were open. What about that was difficult? It's so easy for the shoe to end up on the other foot at the other time. And I hope, Nick, that's what people are saying about Caleb Williams.
I hope so too.
Next year.
He's a product of the system. Good. That's exactly what I want. That's how easy I want it to be. Like my pinned tweet right now in my profile is I've always prayed for I've prayed for
I've prayed for times like these.
When it's the Bears have surrounded a rookie quarterback or quarterback with talent. So on this point, I'm going to pivot to another part of the podcast that Robert doesn't know is coming up. So I have pivoted from staying at 9 and getting a, blue chip player to wanting to trade down. And I didn't think I was going to get here because I like the talent that could be there, especially if a wide receiver is there. I'm even saying, y'all, maybe trading down even if one of the receivers is there. And this is why. We have a long history of Kevin White's and remember Dan Bazine, second round pick, and Leonard Floyd didn't work out too well. I mean, you can go down the list. That's not just in Chicago, y'all. That's across the league. We see these rookies coming in and we think they're going to hit all of their potential, 100% of it. They're going to be so many all pros and Hall of Famers. Like that's all we see. There's also a range of outcomes that's on the bad side of this. And that could be just injuries too. That could be bad play, bad luck. There's lots of stuff, right? But trading down gives you more picks, more players, and more chances. And if people are like investments or investing in this and listening, it's like diversifying your portfolio, right? Let's get more things and more chances and see what's going to hit versus hoping that one stock is really going to hit. So that's one reason why I'm leaning more towards trading down now. How are you feeling about it, Robert?
Well, so to me, Nick, this has always been a matter of, first of all, okay, so let's go top to bottom. How do I feel about trading down? Fine. I mean, I, especially as I've dug into the tape, have fallen deeper and deeper into an intense infatuation with Byron Murphy. I think Byron Murphy is the modern 3 technique that every defense wants. I'm not going to use the name of a Hall of Famer that just retired from Los Angeles, but I will use Aaron Donald to remind everybody that yes, a 3 tech can literally win you a Super Bowl. Because Nick, let's be very clear here. You and I know this. There were 2 areas where the Chicago Bears were especially awful in 2023. Area number 1 was passing when behind. We know this. We do not need to rehash this. The Bears intend to try to address this with the number 1 overall pick, even if it's not an immediate need. But number 2, when they did have a lead and the other team was passing against them, they did not have the pass rush juice to stop these teams from overtaking 3 near historic collapses. So when I look at the Bears' options,
even Arizona, remember that game? George had that touchdown, and we were all like, here we go again. Like, there's even another one.
That sucks. And obviously nobody wants to deal with that. But if you make your pass rush better and you get the best pass rusher, of which I am beginning to believe it is Byron Murphy. I think the best football player is probably Johnny Newton, assuming that his Jones fracture clears. I just don't know that his Jones fracture would clear, and I wouldn't blame Ryan Poles for staying away from a player with a potential medical issue. But so if you could trade down, which you might not be able to, at that point you may be getting Jared Verse. Jared Verse is a really solid player himself. But Nick, I'm getting ahead of myself because I could talk about the defender. I could talk about the clear need there that if you want to win a Super Bowl, you need to stack up with defensive line talent. Let's just shoot straight, man. Justin Jefferson, best receiver in the NFL. Was he a top 16 pick?
No.
No, he wasn't. Stephon Diggs, was he a day 1, day 2 pick?
5th rounder.
Tyreek Hill, was he a top 10 pick?
5th rounder.
CeeDee Lamb, was he a top 10 pick?
Nope.
You go through the laundry list of the NFL's best receivers, and I understand that this is not that far a cry, Nick, from the same logical argument that leads you to never take a quarterback at 1 ever. They don't win Super Bowls. Like, look, guys, I get it. But it's more to say that if, Nick, you and I looked into our crystal ball and saw that Ladd McConkey was really good, are we shocked? No. We think he's really good now. We find out that A.D. Mitchell is the best receiver from this class. Well, that would be surprising, especially now, but it wouldn't be that strange. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like this happens across the NFL, where if you get Rome Odunze, you will probably get at least a Jalen Waddle-like player. Not literally. They're very different players.
Right.
But more to say that when you take a receiver high these days, the hope is that Jalen Waddle or Jamar Chase give you a great receiving floor. And then if they pop the top off that, even better. But in theory, Nick, the optimal play has always been, hasn't it? Like, take a sweet pass rusher and then also take the best receiver you can in a deep receiver class that you and I both know, Nick. I don't care how many guys are in these mock drafts. There's going to be a receiver in the middle of the second round that shouldn't be there in the middle of the second round, right?
Yep. I mean, because they're even third round. There's guys I like. You can go down to like Javon Baker, Malachi Corley. Like there's a ton of receivers. So I'm with you. Again, I need to watch more film. I'm not in love with the 3 tech is the first one we got to draft because the DNs are there too. But to your point though, trading down gives you the opportunity for more chances of however you want to do this puzzle. And so now that you're open to it and you think it's optimal, here's the next thing I got in the podcast. So we all know the Jimmy Johnson trade chart, right?
Right.
And again, some people use different charts now, y'all. But I cooked up some scenarios, okay? And of realistic ones, I think that people might want to trade up to 9. And let's walk through, Robert, what you think if you would say yes or no to. Okay. So let's start off with one that's easy, I would say, okay, in terms of calculating. So the Bears pick at 109 is 1,350 points, y'all. Okay. So you guys can etch that one down if you want. The third round pick, 75, is 215. And the fourth round pick, 122, is only 50. So you can see how quickly they lose value. So would you trade the first pick, 109, to Denver for the 112 and their 3, which is pick 76?
So I get 112 too? I get their 3 and their 4?
You get
112. I heard you. I heard you far too literally.
Sorry. 12th overall pick and the 76th overall pick. Maybe that's easier to say it.
I actually think that is a really nice deal, depending on the way that the board falls. Now, okay, so Bears fan, before everybody throws their fingers in their hair and rips all the hair out of your head, okay?
Yep.
The trade situation where I think this makes the most sense. Nick, are you comfortable with me doing a very fast little mock draft? Is number 1, Caleb Williams. Number 2, let's say it's Drake May.
I think it's May.
Yeah. Number 3, let's say it's JJ McCarthy. At this stage, just given the noise, Nick, I am fully prepared for number 2 to either be Jaden Daniels or Drake May with JJ after them. That seems to be where we are. Maybe it's all smoke. maybe it's all lies, right? But
Mm-hmm.
it's weird with May and Daniels because instead of 2 and 3, I'm sitting here like, oh, one of them's 2, and the other one's probably the last quarterback taken,
Yep.
at least in the major set. I'm ahead of myself. Arizona gives up number 4, then quarterback 4 goes off the board. Marvin Harrison, Malik Neighbors at 6 makes sense to me. Joe Alt at 7. At 8, Atlanta trades down. Rome Odunze's the pick. Atlanta can't pick Rome. I don't think they could pick Rome. I guess they could if they really wanted to be gung-ho about it. But the point is, if the Bears are at 9 and all the receivers are gone and the major lineman is gone and it is pick your favorite defensive player, the Broncos want to come up. They want to take Bo Nix, or maybe they want to take Olu Fashanu. Maybe they want to take J.C. Latham. It could be anybody. Way too often, we just gloss over the fact that there are a bunch of sweet linemen in this class that could easily be taken top 10. But anyways, if the Broncos wanted to come up for this, this is the perfect time to do it. Like, that's the perfect little bitty trade down so that you go down. Now you've got a pick you can trade down from. This 76 can turn into your whole day 3 suite, which is the whole purpose of trading down from that spot. And then you just have to cross your fingers that you've got a good enough idea of who they draft, that when they draft their guy, let's say, for instance, the Broncos came up and they drafted Dallas Turner, right, Nick? Or maybe they drafted a quarterback. And now you know the Jets. The Jets are going to take a lineman. And then you get to then you get to whoever traded with Minnesota, and they take an edge. Maybe you still get your preferred guy. And you added a pick. Maybe you don't. But there's less risk than going a little further down. This one, to me, is the most realistic. But I bet you're about to hunt for bigger picks.
No, because I think you think of that and you're like, well, they should get way more than that. Okay, let's look at the chart, y'all. So again, 1350 is pick 9. 12 is 1200 and 76 is 210. So right there, you profit 60
you actually
right
got a good deal.
Now,
You might have to kick a future pick back.
Maybe, yeah. And that's the thing is, like, not all of these are equal. Y'all, they're not, you're going to win some, you're going to lose some, etc. But thinking Denver's going to give you that and future this, likely not the case. So you might just get a 1 and a 3. So if we keep going here, and I mean, we already have your mock draft in mind. So the Raiders, their pick at 13 is 1150, and their second is 460. Okay, so that would be 1610, which is much higher than 9. So in my mind, you'd have to give them pick 9 and your third to get 13 and 44.
Ooh,
and you
like
still would profit.
I get you. So that would be a pick swap of the 3 and the 2 at that point.
Yeah, what do you think of that?
I'm interested at the very least. I mean, look, you and I both think that the Bears need depth. Let's not pretend we don't. But if you're going to take a defender, I would really like a wide receiver. I mean, I love Keenan Allen. I am going to talk about Keenan Allen for an entire season the same way I'm going to talk about Tevin Jenkins, which is to say, I love you when you're there, and I am not counting on you to be there, if that makes sense. Like, there are going to be plenty of games, Nick, where Keenan Allen's going to be suited up and I'm fully ready for him to play. But do I know Keenan Allen will be there for a critical Week 11 game? No. Or at least I'm less sure he'll be there than...
I think you're more pessimistic on his injuries than I am.
Well, it's more me trying to... If I'm the GM, I think it's my job to plan around that. Does that make sense? Where I can hope for the best and where I can plan for the worst are different things. Or maybe I can meld the two together, right? So my thought is, if you could, for instance, take an 185-pound kid from Georgia with some of the best feet in the class, including the top group, and you basically brought a guy like Ladd McConkey in to be your wide receiver 2, except that he is your wide receiver 3 because Keenan's there, then you know what, Nick? A Sunday of DJ Moore, Ladd McConkey, and Tyler Scott, that's fine. This does not bother me. Now, you obviously lose your third. You pretty much don't draft again. Like, you're going to have to draft again in the 4th. Yep. But I would get over it if that's the route that they went, so long as they got a player at McConkey's level. We got a couple that you and I could talk about in that tier, separate conversation. But it's more to say, if that's how the Bears wanted to try to get their cake or basically that would be attempting to have your cake and eat it too. And all they would need is for a quality receiver to fall to what did you say, 44?
44, yep.
All they'd need is for somebody to get there. And if you pulled it off, you managed Caleb Williams. Let's say you got Caleb Williams, Byron Murphy, Lad McConkey, bang, bang, bang. Honestly, forfeit the 4th round pick. You're good. Like, right. Good draft.
I'm sky high on Lad McConkey as well. I mean, people think of him as like just a slot receiver. He's not. He can win on the outside.
If Jordan Addison can win on the outside, Lad McConkey can win on the outside.
Well, he's got the same athleticism as Garrett Wilson, y'all. Like it's, yeah. So we're on the same page now. In my mind, like, I mean, and you could go Verse, because I've shifted a little bit here, Robert. I do not think Dallas Turner is their guy. I think Jared Verse is the guy.
Verse is so funny too, because what really gets my attention as a scout, Nick, is when I see somebody have a stronger strength than everybody else. I'll use a direct example, okay? When I watch Javon Baker, I don't see the speed of somebody like Xavier Worthy, and I don't see the power of somebody like Keon Coleman. I see somebody with a balance of both, which is great in the Big 12. But in the NFL, you have to go up against Jalen Johnson. Are your edges sharp enough to cut guys like him? It's harder. It's why when Javon had an okay Senior Bowl, it's not gonna freak me out, Nick. But it is the reason I think he'll get drafted in the 3rd round, as opposed to some of these guys in the 1st to the early 2nd. And I talk about this because Jared Verse's power is comic book power.
Oh, like, I know.
Verse has really no bend at all, but he looks like Colossus playing, and he's like 245 pounds, and he is throwing.
Well, I think he lost a bunch of weight to get athletic, and then I think he plays at 260, 265.
Still, man, he's got juice in his hands.
I might have some breaking news here.
Oh,
I'm looking at this. This is Bear News. I don't know if this is real or not. Brendan reposted this. Shaguru, right? Our buddy. Who do you think changed their jersey number potentially to number 1? Stop looking.
Oh, I saw this already. So you want to go ahead and spoil it?
Yeah. Do you think Jalen Johnson's his number is going to be number 1 now?
Yeah, that's what he was at Utah. Like,
I know, but I just think that's interesting.
It is. Look, Nick. All right.
You said Jalen Johnson, so we'll pivot to this.
No. What I more wanted to point out, right, is again, gosh, Bears fan, if you disagree with this, forgive me, okay? It's been a long couple months, Nick. I'm gonna. This isn't tinfoil. This is just like we're gonna go Robert Unfiltered for a brief moment. All right, so just strap in. We did a lot of talking. A lot of people did a lot of talking about how if the Bears moved on from Justin Fields, it would shatter the locker room. And to me, a DB getting paid and immediately taking his former quarterback's old number says this is all business. It has been all business. They're professionals. It's not that they don't love Justin. They posted on Twitter that they were upset he was gone.
What number do you think Caleb's going to be?
So, have you seen all the Twitter stuff about this?
I know. It's ridiculous right now. Like, is he 13? Is he going to be 18?
I got gagged by that fake account saying Keenan Allen was going to be 15. Like, I got got. If Caleb goes with 18 because that was his old high school number, I'll think it's weird. But you know what? I guess it was Kyle Orton that needed to save us after all. But at this point, Nick, I almost think that the number thing it's something that's keeping us all guessing, and that's great. Like anything else, I just want some daggum closure. Like, I feel like I can't talk about Caleb Williams. I haven't put this anywhere. Nick, I feel like I can't write about Caleb Williams because he's not a Bear yet. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
I get it.
I could put some pen to paper, but there's a level of analysis that you kind of just, why do it until he's actually a member of the team?
I think it would, I don't know, some people don't like this. I don't think the Bears will let him. I think it would be cool if he was number 0. I think it would be clean.
I think it would be cool. I think it would be so non-traditional that if he lost 3 out of his first 4 games, there'd be somebody out there that would lump wearing number 0 in with painting his nails, etc. And so there is this weird part of me that's like, well, 18's not been a bad number for quarterbacks historically.
Peyton Manning.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. So sorry for digressing.
12 is probably still my hidden favorite.
18?
12.
12.
If I don't think he's actually going to go with 12. Specifically, this would be exercising my Aaron Rodgers demon. I think that there's this. So, Nick, if I got to write the story, okay, if I got to choose how this works, I think it would be perfect irony for the Bears to draft a somewhat dislikable, especially in the eyes of opposing fans, quarterback that is near constantly controversial, that is unbelievably creative, wears number 12, and beats his rival into utter submission. I mean, Nick, Aaron Rodgers won Super Bowls, or won a Super Bowl. We know that. Aaron Rodgers has won plenty of playoff games. We know that. Aaron Rodgers basically founded his career on shredding the Bears into such tatters that he became the unquestioned force that he is. I mean, you could say it is because of his record against the Bears that he is looked at in part the way that he is, not just in Chicago. I know that in Dallas, like Dallas people talk about how he owns the Bears, etc.
Right.
And if Caleb Williams owned the Packers, won Super Bowl, owned the Packers, good enough for me. Anything else is gravy. You know what I'm saying?
No, I get. It just would seem weird to me in terms of 12. I'm looking at all of the retired Bears numbers. There's quite a few of them. It would be cool if it'd be weird is if he took 23 because it's so good in Chicago.
Oh my god,
Jordan, you know what I mean? I know it's not a quarterback number.
Can quarterbacks even they can now, can't they?
I think so.
Oh my gosh.
It would look weird. Anyway, okay, let's digress back. I got some more scenarios here. Okay. So I think New Orleans has a shot to trade up too, but we won't. That's too familiar, I think, with the Vegas scenario. I do think Indy could give up. They would be overpaying a bit. I think it would be Chicago's 9th and 122nd pick. That'd be 1,400. And the Colts' 15th and 46th pick would be 1,490. So it's an overpay of 90.
Ooh, here's a weird one, Nick.
They can move up.
What do you think the Colts' plan is? This is me putting you on the spot. And if you don't want to be on the grill, I don't blame you, because I wouldn't have a real answer to this.
I think the Colts, they're going to be aggressive. That's what I think.
How quickly do you think they want to turn this thing? Is what I'm saying. Like, do you think are they aiming for next year? Or are they aiming for 2025?
I think they're aiming for next year. I mean, that division is tough, but you have to keep up with that division as well. And they just paid Michael Pittman.
Mm-hmm.
And
speaking of, you're leading me right to where I want to go.
Yeah.
Speaking of guys they just paid, well, there's an extension on the Colts it's knocking on the door. Like, DeForest Buckner needs paper, and somebody's going to give it to him. And I'm curious, Nick. Now let me flip this on you. Would you rather get draft compensation to move from 9 to 15, or would you rather get Buckner? He's old enough and he needs a new contract that I have to imagine his value can't be that high. I doubt you're getting a discount, right? But he's going to, the moment.
I don't think that 15 and Buckner are enough to move to 9.
That's sort of the question, because you'd probably have to value it that way.
Yeah. Because in my mind, I think it'll be a 2. They would use a 1 and 2 to move up to 9. And I don't think you would give up a second round pick overall to get DeForest Buckner this year and pay him. I
want to agree with you. The NFL almost has me thinking that because he plays defensive line and not wide receiver, and he just came off of a sweet season last year.
But he's 30.
I know. But the defensive linemen tend to age gracefully until about 32, which is an imperfect science. But more to say, so you would take the second, not Buckner, unless you got a sweetener.
Yeah, if they give me Buckner and the third, I'm in.
Why, man, if you got Buckner and a third just to move down 6 spots, you'd be stealing.
I mean, so their third is 180 plus what they have. It'd be 1230, and Chicago's pick is 1350. So you're roughly saying Buckner's worth 200, which is an early third, which I think is fair.
I think that's I think that's one of those where it's like, Nick, you're being very conservative on investing in the player, and I don't blame you. I think that's the smart way to do this.
But that's what the NFL says too.
It's about whether
I know you
Chris
said
Ballard would say it, is more what I'm getting at.
well,
Like,
Keenan Allen was a fourth.
Keenan Allen was also somebody that somebody had to move. Like, I would argue, Nick, that the Bears got Keenan Allen off the discount rack. I really would. Plenty of people would say that that's a fourth rounder. And I'm like, Keenan is worth a high fourth, worst case scenario, but probably a mid third, if you ask me. They were just in a cap crunch and you have to sell at a discount. That's what life is like. In the Colts case, I don't think they need to get rid of Buckner. It's a fun idea, but they don't need to get rid of Buckner. So you would probably have to value him at that second round pick to force Ballard's hand a little bit.
Would you take Buckner in 15 for 9?
Probably not, but I wonder if Flus would fight me over that. Like, if I'm Ryan Poles, I would probably also take the picks. We're both on the same page here, but it's a fun thought. And
no, it's fair. So, okay, let's get more extremes with our scenarios here for the fun's sake. And I know you had your mock draft, okay? But let me just disagree with your mock draft.
No, please feel free to change it. I used that mock draft because when we talk about trading down, it is really important to note that if the Bears are trading down from Rome Odunze, I expect them to at least get a draft premium. Like, that's where I expect the Jacksonville to offer not just 17 and 48, but also like a future 2 or something like that. You got to sweeten this deal for me if you're getting Rome Odunze.
What? It's you got to convince me to not take him.
The trades you and I are talking about, part of what keeps me sane when we think about them is that I do think there's a realistic chance the Bears are going to get snaked on the receivers. Hey, it happens. You can't control the draft board.
Sure.
If anything, Nick, here's one more just as we pivot into this next one. Marvin Harrison is at number 5, and Jim Harbaugh lets you know that if you give up the Carolina second, he'll let you take him. Do you? He doesn't want the Chicago one.
Yeah, here's my hot take. No, because I value basically all those 3 receivers very closely together. And I think I could give up maybe a fourth to move up a spot or 2 instead of giving up a second.
I don't disagree, but I do think that trade up stuff, it's weird how many people are mentioning that one. And I'm like, Ryan. Because the moment, if Ryan Poles is starting to get wind that Atlanta's fielding calls for number 8, then I could easily see a world where Ryan says, actually, I'm not going to let this opportunity go. I'm going to get one of these guys.
So, okay.
But let's keep talking trade downs too.
No, I'm going to disagree with you on something. You think Atlanta's trading down?
I don't think they're going to.
You've said it a lot. Now, hold on. They're 34 scheme.
Yep.
I don't think Jared Verse fits the 34.
You don't think he could fit it at all?
I don't think it's okay. Of the edge prospects, is he the best 34 edge?
Like as an outside linebacker?
Yep.
No. Dallas Turner's probably the best one. But I do think that you could have Jared Verse play stand up outside linebacker and just not drop him into coverage often.
Okay, but now let's look at the Falcons have had a huge issue rushing the passer for a decade.
Yes.
And you have the perfect, I think, 34 outside linebacker, young guy. Because I like Latu, y'all. They brought him in for a visit. Chicago did. I don't know what that medical is. And we both talked or I think you mentioned in the last podcast about Mason, what he said. So like that's neither here nor there. He's not going to go top 10. So it's either Verse or Turner. I think Turner fits so well with Atlanta at 8, but I think that the receivers could go earlier than that. So give another scenario. 3 quarterbacks are gone. 3 receivers are gone. Joe Alt and edge. You're sitting at 9 and there's a quarterback there. And Minnesota calls. Okay. Their first round picks add up to and 10, and Chicago's 9 is 1350. Okay. Do you, Robert, give up 9 and Chicago's second next year to get the 2 1s?
I don't see how you pass on that. You'd be getting such an insane premium, according to
Look,
the draft pick, that
yep.
while it's too bad that Minnesota gets a quarterback, you're also taking assets away from them because, as I understand it, Minnesota basically pushed all their chips into 23, right? I'm not staring at the draft chart right now, but I'm pretty sure they don't have a second round pick.
They
It's
don't.
not as if they're done on the defensive side of the ball. If anything, you could argue that last year they did a whole lot with smoke and mirrors. And now, guess what, Nick? Now the tape's out there. Like, Brian Flores is a great defensive coordinator. I have no doubt that he will bring it again next year. But your game, like the thing you did that got everybody, now it's obvious what it looks like in purple.
Yep.
And near the end of the season, you started to see it flag a little bit, in part because it's hard to keep that kind of thing up.
And that happened in Miami too. Year 1, it was fun. And year 2, Lamar Jackson shredded him when he was terrible the first year. So like that happens. Now I think that's an overpay, but also here's the other part, guys. Like there is an overpay when it comes to quarterback. Like
Oh,
that.
yeah.
That's just how it works. And this is in division too. Now, would you do that? Would you take, let's say, the Denver deal straight up 12 and 76 instead of that deal because you don't want Minnesota to get a quarterback?
I probably, so I'm not so scared of dealing with Minnesota. Granted, I'm sure you could talk me into it. I'm sure you could, Nick, to be honest with you. But there's part of me that looks at it as, well, the guy bled all the way to number 9. Why would we not want to benefit off of this?
Do
Because
you who's the quarterback? Obviously, Caleb's gone. Of the other 3, who do you not want Minnesota to get?
I don't want him to get Drake. If I got to choose it, I will live and die with if Jaden Daniels and JJ McCarthy beat the tar out of us. But if you gave Drake May the ability to just sprocket balls to Jordan Addison and Justin Jefferson, I would definitely worry about that. I do think that when Gerard Mayo talks about how Drake May has a lower floor than the media discusses, I think he's right. I mean, Drake in particular, look, Nick, I think you and I both really, really like Drake May. Physical tools are phenomenal. He does have a tendency to wilt late in games. There are clear moments where he's rattled on UNC's tape. I don't know that he elevates the play calling. And by that, I mean, Nick, he's the kind of guy who he's going to try to fit the ball into a keyhole because the play called for him to do that instead of interpreting that maybe the situation calls for him to do something else that's outside the lines, right? All that stuff you and I both praise and critique Caleb for, where Caleb is reading between the lines so often that sometimes you're like, stop reading that. I told you to do something, do it, right? Drake is going to do it nearly no matter what. The play calls for us to hit the sail route, it's covered. I'm fitting it in anyways. And maybe that could work to Chicago's benefit if he's going to throw the ball up to the corners. But man, that arm talent with those receivers, I don't know, but dude, I'd be worried.
All right, I didn't know we were going to get here, but it happens. It's a podcast. So I literally about 2 hours ago, I just got done being on Chris Harris's podcast. So Chris Harris used to be on ESPN. So if you guys want to hear my quarterback prospect of all of the this year's thoughts, not as much of a fantasy lens, more of just NFL lens. That'll be coming out, I think, tomorrow. He said. So, here's my order, NFL order of these quarterbacks: Caleb, Drake May, JJ McCarthy, Jane Daniels. And in terms of NFL ready right now, Jane Daniels is number 2. He's the most ready, but he's also 23. JJ McCarthy turned 21 in January. Drake May is still 21, turning 2022. So like there's a developmental part of this too, y'all. Like in terms of we've seen so many starts from players that just like this, Jared Verse, right? We've seen him way more starts from Jared Verse than we have Dallas Turner, who's younger. So you think there's more projection going on there. Drake May has way more tools. Yes, he's inconsistent with his footwork at times. To me, his bad end, Robert, like the low end of his comp for me, is Jay Cutler. I have the arm and I can fit it in there. I'm confident enough in my arm I can do it, and bad plays can happen. But he's also athletic and he's tough. He can make other plays that way. And then his high end is the Herbert-ish area. Probably a little less than that. But there's no way I want that in Minnesota.
I
Give
don't
me
think that's low enough. And that's not me trying to hate,
in terms
because
of his high end.
in terms of the low end. Like, Jay was very self-assured. And this is me digging into stuff I don't know about, okay?
Yeah.
I can't make this clear enough. I am speculating with a capital S, okay? But if there is one thing I wonder about with Drake, it's, does he have that moxie to throw it anyways? Jay almost didn't care whether the ball was going to get caught by
Well,
his guy or the other guy. He
but
was going to throw it.
Mike Tyson's offense was just throw it to Brandon Marshall.
Right.
So to
And,
be fair,
and there's an element with Drake that I do wonder. Just saying, Nick, he seems like, of the four in this class, the guy who I would be most worried about if he went into a situation where things didn't work immediately. Like, if that's not me coming after Drake. That's
good.
not
So
me coming after Drake.
let me
I
break this
love
one
Drake
more.
May. He's my QB too. He's somebody
So-
that the more I've dug, I don't think I know what's in his head.
He was in the worst situation of any of them this past year.
Sort of.
He had the worst O-line. His
Yes.
offensive coordinator, Phil Longo, went to Wisconsin. He lost his
Right.
OC. And he lost his top two receivers, 180 targets, I think it was.
Objectively bad. On the football field, the worst situation. I want to agree with that. The only reason you even heard me hesitate is because he didn't enter the season with generational tagged to his name and expected. Like, I think Caleb took a decent amount of media heat off of Drake, is really all I'm getting at. During the football season, Drake got to be the hipster pick and the, oh hell yeah, this guy, maybe he's QB1.
They were 1A, 1B, I thought.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, like, it's in there. But anyways, and then you have Jaden Daniels, who has 2 top 15 likely picks, maybe top 20 picks at receiver, and a top 3 O-line. And so, like, you kind of go through that. I think you have to play that into it a bit. Anyways, getting to Minnesota, Daniels is the one that I would fear the least, despite being the good runner, despite the guy that could do the best right away.
Did I answer the question backwards? Because I thought you meant fear the most.
No, I did. Yeah.
Okay,
he's
good.
one I would fear the least is what I meant. And then
we're on the
and
same page then.
May for me, and then it'd be McCarthy. Because I think that, but again, they have some projection to it. So it would be interesting. I this sounds bad. I might just take the Denver trade over the Minnesota trade just because I want them to be stuck with like Michael Penix or Bo Nix or whatever. Or if they want to wait till next year, go ahead. Wait till next year, get a bad quarterback that class.
If you told me that the Bears taking the Denver trade, if you looked in that crystal ball, Nick, and you said, okay, Robert, here's your choices, okay? And I go, okay, yeah, I'm ready. You get Byron Murphy. All right, I'm already in. At 23, you get to trade down. Oh, hell yeah. Now we're going to get basically like a low or a very high second rounder. And we're also going to add another high third rounder so that we can give up number 23. And I'm like, okay. And did we add future picks too? And they go, yes. I'm like, all right, man, we are swimming in draft capital, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You play the whole thing out. It's great for Chicago, but Minnesota finds their quarterback. Or, Nick, you trade with Denver. They have to start the whole season with Darnold. Next year, they've lost enough where they have to trade up for Quinn Ewers, and Quinn Ewers becomes the Vikings quarterback of the future. Yeah, that's a good point.
like for me, well, you think of every time you play Minnesota, they have their I don't know, range of outcomes of beating you are down significantly, and for twice a year in division. Like, to me, like, I'm like, yep, that might I might be petty enough to go with that angle. So anyways, okay, let's go into some more scenarios and then we'll probably wrap up the podcast. So let's say you trade down further. Okay. Philly, their 22nd, 50, and 53rd picks add up to 1,550. So then you probably have to go with your 9th and 75th. So you'd move up, 20-ish picks from round 3 to round 2. You get a second, you move down to 22. What do you think about that?
I'm interested, but there's this part of me that looks at that and says, okay, we're moving down a good bit and this trade's manageable, but we've got a lot of offers here. And I just don't know that this one's the most attractive. Howie, you got to throw something at me. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know that that's a you win trade. I think that's just a pivot.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're getting more because at 22, you might miss out on all of the D linemen. And it might be Adonai Mitchell if you want a receiver or Ladd. And I just think that might be a little too much. We'll see. All right. Next one. Arizona. Because we saw the video, right? They're going all over the place. That's the other thing I like about Poles, y'all, while we're going through this. Poles trades down. He traded up for Tyreek, right? Traded for players. Like he's a trader. So if Chicago doesn't trade on the draft weekend, I would be shocked.
I would be pretty surprised too. But I will actually really like the conviction if they don't. Now,
right. That means they got a stud at 9. So Arizona calls, Robert. 27, 35, and 90. Straight up for 9.
27, 35, and 90 for 9. I don't think that's enough. The chart may say it is.
Yep.
But for me, you go from a high tier 2 or low tier 1 player, and you're probably dropping to about tier 4 once you get down to 27. And I think the drop off there hurts us more than it helps us to add 2 tier 4 players. How do you feel?
Yeah, so the chart says you win only like 20 points. So like they're definitely not paying a premium on that. I like it because it's a much higher second, right, versus that Philly trade. But yeah, you're gonna get. I mean, your edge here is probably. I mean, there's always guys that fall, but this could be like Darius Robinson, Chop Robinson, which I don't really love Chop, y'all.
That's the thing, Nick. Like,
right.
To go where you're going, I think one of the other pieces to this puzzle that Bears fans we've got to talk about is that when you look across the league and you look at field tilting defensive linemen, unsurprisingly, quite a few of them are first rounders. Quite a few of them. Because, Nick, it's not that NFL scouts are always perfect, but big guys in particular tend to evidence their talent in ways that I think smaller guys don't always get the chance to. You get literally more snaps, but also it's a physically dominant position, both on the offensive and defensive line side, as opposed to being something more based in craft, right? If you got one of these tier 1 or tier 2 defenders, I would argue, Nick, that the impact that they will have both now and in the future, maybe it doesn't match Chop, but more than likely it will match and exceed what Chop can offer. It's not to say that Chop Robinson is going to be a bad player or Darius Robinson is going to be a bad player. But Nick, don't you agree that when you watch their tape, Jared Verse's tape is much stronger than Darius Robinson's?
Yes, but back to my original point of trading down versus staying at 9. More
with
picks,
the defender in particular.
More chances.
I believe that Rome Odunze. So I'm not going to blame Rome, Bears fan, but I do think that Rome being a wide receiver 1 level receiver has blinded Bears fans to the fact that these edge rushers aren't Myles Garrett and they're not Will Anderson, but they're whatever is one rung below that, and that is a Brian Burns level player. Like, if you added, Nick, a Brian Burns level edge in Jared Verse or Dallas Turner, your defensive line gets really good. If you added maybe not Chris Jones, but you added Kobe Turner or a little better in terms of your defensive tackle lineup, your defensive line gets really good. It's so easy to forget, Bears fan. It wasn't just CJ Stroud that turned around the Texans.
No.
It was also Will Anderson.
let me give you another scenario with this one. The same Cardinals trade. At 27, you get Ladd McConkey. At 35, you get Zach Frazier.
Oh, man. Sweet players.
But are they helping you as much this year? Maybe not.
Maybe
this
not.
Might be a planning out more. Is that worth it?
It might be. I mean, I could see a world where it is, right? First of all, Nick, it's worth mentioning, I actually think Ladd's probably going to be there in the second, and if he's not, I'll be so happy for him. Like, let me be so real with you.
I think he's going round 1.
He should go round 1, but he's a smaller guy. He's got injury flags. He didn't play every snap of every game. I will not be shocked to see him get the Josh Downs treatment. It's not exactly the same. You and I know that.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't be surprised to see him lose a round, basically from where he should be. And then, of course, we'll turn around and go, why do we ever do this?
Robert, he's one of the guys that if they pick him, I'm going to shout with joy.
I mean, that's that's darn near by the Jersey night one, like level player. I love Vlad McConkey.
His film, y'all, like catches outside his frame, separates. Yeah, he's not physical. He's not going to be winning contested catches, but like all these guys aren't perfect. Like they all can't do everything, but he separates. I would argue he separates better than some of the top guys.
Absolutely disgusting foot frequency in the most positive way possible. I mean, go look at him on the speed ladder and then go watch him out on the football field. They are the same. Like he brings every ounce of that.
Zach Frazier, if we pivot.
Zach Frazier is a beast. He's really good. Is he the one who's rehabbing a knee injury?
Yes, and he's already running.
Which, we love that. I will tell you, Nick. Okay, so the Bears have been rebuilding for so long that it is easy to forget, Bears fan, that two things are true at the same time. Number one, Nick, what do you think? 20 minimum teams are quote unquote not done. Like if we're talking about rebuild, right?
Yeah.
Roughly 20 to 22 teams in the NFL are in some stage of disrepair. So if the Bears enter the 2024 season not done yet, they will not be alone. And while that may not mean that they're able to spar with the Niners, we don't know yet, right? They'll win plenty of games. Like they won in plenty of games in 2023 down the back stretch because, shocker, even when you're not totally done, you still have sharp enough blades where you can win some games. But
Robert, we talked about this. They're winning 9 games next year, at least.
They sure should. And if they do get a sweet pass rusher, I would feel way more confident in that. Because the biggest question I have about this team, if Keenan Allen goes down, now you have DJ Moore, you have probably a free agent. We forget this, but like Tyler Boyd, there are like different waves of free agency that are still not yet concluded. It's not literally Tyler Scott, wide receiver 2. We aren't doing that under any circumstance.
No.
You know what I mean, Nick?
No.
So if Keenan Allen went down right now, you have DJ Moore, you have Cole Kmet, you have a free agent wide receiver, and probably a 3rd round pick. Is that the worst thing in the world? No. Right? But the moment you lose Montez Sweat, you got nothing up front. So there is this part of me, and I don't know if I'm too football pilled for my own good, Nick, where I'm like, Nick Wayland is over here telling me stories about how a current offensive lineman played edge rusher and wrecked an entire game, like across from him, and his offense had no answers. And you want me to not advocate for the Bears to take a pass rusher, knowing how, like, that is such a vegetable pick in the sense that it's like, of course it kind of sucks now, but that's the nutrients this team needs.
Well, and it fits more Flus's scheme because he wants to sit back and not actually bring more guys. He wants to rush with the front 4. So I get that. Here's my issue with it.
It doesn't surround Caleb, Nick. It doesn't surround Caleb.
Exactly. If you invest in the D-line and the D-line's better, but there's an injury and Caleb doesn't take the step or doesn't become the superstar because we didn't support him, it's a loss. If you over support him, which I don't think that can ever be a thing because every franchise wants more playmakers or we need one more of this, one more of that. That's a good problem to have. So whether it's Ladd at 27 and Zach Frazier to make sure that he is upright because we know Caleb loves to hold on to the ball, or it's Rome at 9, I'm way more in favor of that than I am going, and no offense, a less than 6'1" defensive tackle that's a 3-tech that can pass rush, and Caleb doesn't take the step.
I think Caleb taking the step, I think we need to be bold enough to say that with Keenan Allen and DJ Moore in Chicago, alongside Cole Kmet, JT can say whatever he wants to. Cole Kmet really distinguished himself last season, I thought. His route running is taking a major step forward.
Better.
And I'm a reformed Kmet hater. So I'm really trying to preach this gospel here because I am one of those people who used to be like, he's got no hip wiggle. What's he going to do? And he learned that Mark Andrews route of like, I'm going to put both my hands into you. I'm going to throw you as hard as I can. I'm going to turn over my outside shoulder and I'm going to be open. And he is. And that works. And Nick, I look at this and I say to myself, if Caleb can't take the step with these guys, plus an offseason next year, because the step comes next year, right? Then I don't know that Rome Odunze was going to be the difference, right? There is an element of we can't be so scared that we look at this and we say it's not enough. It is enough. It's just only enough. It's not an abundance, right?
No, I yeah. I mean, even you could say you re-sign him or extend him, and you get a receiver in the second or in the third too, and it helps. Okay,
I got a bold prediction for you.
Before we end this, okay?
I got a bold prediction for you, Nick. But it sounds like let's get through our scenarios first, and then I'll hit you with mine.
Okay, this is the last one. So everyone's like, "Man, get through these scenarios."
This is Buffalo, isn't it?
Buffalo.
This is.
Okay.
I can't do it. I can't do it.
Okay.
I have to do it, but I can't do it.
I know you have to. 28, 60, and they're 2025 first.
It's too much. They won't do it. They won't make this trade.
Not too much.
Like it's more to say, like, Nick,
numbers wise, it's not.
I know numbers wise it's not, but it'd be such a silly decision on Buffalo's part. Like, you want to take what you think is necessary move for Josh Allen and just torpedo your potential future. Now you need this guy to live up to 3 major picks. Like, that's a huge ask for whatever receiver they'd be bringing in. But Nick, as the Bears, how do you pass on this? Like, right. You would have to have some serious chutzpah. If it was me, I think I still would hold firm as I could anyways. Because while getting a future one is awesome, and while the Bills may take a decent step forward or a step backwards next year and potentially offer you a pick that's in like the 18 to 22 region, that'd be awfully nice. I think that you lose too much going that far down, personally. What do you think?
No, you do. I mean, the big part of this is, if you get a player at 9, they are starting day one. And even if it's a receiver, because we'll be in 3 wide receivers.
You'll even be expecting an impact day one.
Right. You go late one, it changes it. They might not. If you go 28 and 60, I mean, look at last year. Dexter, Stevenson, somewhat. I mean, think of 2 years ago. Brisker, Kyler Gordon, some, but rookies are going to struggle, y'all. So, like, I think if you do this trade, it's more of helping your 2025 team than your 2024 team.
I think so. And I mean, long-term view, that trade may work out better for the Bears, but I do think, Nick, so we've talked before about how Matt Eberflus and Ryan Poles are safe for 2025.
That's where I was going to go to. Nice.
I'm not changing that. They are safe, but they're going to either put their benefit of the doubt on the line, or whether if they lose and then they're going to go into 2025 without the benefit of the doubt, or they could go ahead and get themselves extended early. And I tend to think that means, Nick, think of this as your like look ahead season. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is the season where nobody expects everything, or nobody expects anything, except that they kind of do. And so,
what if they then package the future one for a receiver?
Well, I was about to say, I think my bold,
juicy.
As we talk about this, my bold prediction, that's not that bold, is if the Bears pick at 9, Bears fan, don't skip the second round. Because if there was ever a time for Ryan Poles to trade a future 2 plus one of the current, or the only current 4th rounder he has, this makes sense. It does. Yep. Where that would be the Anthony Miller trade, almost verbatim. Yep. To get back into the second round and probably take a receiver.
Well, and honestly, 122 is not great this year. That's why.
It's not. It's not that bold. It's barely a tinfoil hat. I didn't get a tinfoil hat moment this time.
Gosh,
I don't think.
You always do, man. You always do.
Like, what do you think? Do you think that's crazy, or do you think that sounds about right to you?
No, it's fine. Depends on what you do with your other pick. Like, if you go Jared Verse at 9, which, by the way, I think is possible. You go Jared Verse at 9, and then you trade up, and then you get a Keon Coleman, both Florida State guys.
Okay, I'm going to name a couple guys.
And then at 75, you have to get Trey Benson to get the Florida State trifecta.
All right, Nick, I got a list for you. All right, just coming off the top of my head. All right, so this is yay or nay. At pick 48, the Bears trade up and they take Xavier Worthy.
Yay.
They take Keon Coleman.
Yay.
They take Ladd.
Yes.
They take, they take Javon Baker.
No.
They take Ricky Pearsall.
No.
They take...
I like Ricky Pearsall. That's a little high for me.
Okay. Let me see. They're not going to take Corley at 48. They're just not. Who am I missing? Because there are some sweet receivers that...
Well, it depends on what you think of backgrounds. I mean, I like Jermaine Burton quite a bit.
Which, yeah, backgrounds are a big question when it comes to a guy like...
Probably a little high considering that, but he would be nice.
He would be. He'd be sweet.
Yeah. There's some receivers in this class, y'all, and it's deep.
And also, Nick, I can't believe I'm saying this, but I want to quickly put my hand on the virtual shoulder of Nick Whalen from January, February, because there is a move at 9 that's starting to appeal to me more and more and more, maybe even in a trade down.
I was just going to bring this up.
I can't believe I'm talking myself into Brock Bowers.
Yes.
I can't believe.
I was literally going to stop you and talk about that.
I can't believe I'm talking myself into Brock Bowers.
The more I watch him, the more I'm like, that guy's a really good football player.
He's a blue chipper.
Yep.
He's a very unique blue chipper that he reminds me a lot of Kyle Hamilton, is the best way I could put this, where we know he can play. We don't know how we're going to deploy him, but we know he can play. He can play enough tight end that we're going to call him a tight end. Kyle Hamilton can play enough safety. We're going to call him a safety, but we're going to have to be more creative than that when it actually comes to getting our value out of him. And you know what? If you took that trade down to Denver, or even you took him stag at 9, it would be different. It would not be what I expected, but this would not be a pick that I would, I don't know, get really mad about. Does that make sense?
No, how can you be mad when he's a really good football player? Okay, I brought this up before. I don't know that I did on this podcast. I know I did on the other one. I feel like Drake May falling is a bit like, well, he's always been the 2. Now let's talk ourselves into the other 2 quarterbacks. Similar to Marvin Harrison Jr. is the top guy. Maybe it's Neighbors. Maybe it's Odunze is the top guy. I like all 3. Like I said, I think they're all close, but I think Harrison is the wide receiver 1. I think it's similar to Brock Bowers, to where like he's been so good and so elite for so long that people are kind of like, well, is he that good? He's a tight end. Like they diminish him. And they're like, dude, you forget this guy's been elite since day 1 at Georgia, winning national titles. He's been, as a true freshman, as a tight end, they've given him the ball and he's helped them win natties. He's put the team on the back. I mean, we talked about how good Lamakonki is. Lamakonki's had to take a back seat to this guy. And you don't want him?
Oh, man. I mean, he took over games in ways that are very difficult to take over. Not from tight end, from anybody.
Yep.
Like, he is dancing in between zone coverages. He is breaking tackles after the catch. He is moving. I mean, I watched him and literally thought he was a receiver, and that they were just deploying this receiver at the point of attack for kicks, forgetting that Brock was on Georgia, because that was where my brain was at watching Jalen Simpson, the defender. I was like, who's 19?
So let me tell you why I like him even more now than I did, maybe say a month ago. Okay. So, y'all, there's, it's caused some controversy. There's some things that have happened in the NFL in terms of rule changes, right? They made some rule changes. There's the kickoff one, but there's also this one, the hip drop tackle, where that's how DBs took down tight ends and bigger players because they're bigger and stronger and it's tougher to bring them down. So they latch on with 2 hands. They unhinge their weight. They put over their back of their legs. That's how they get them down. Brock Bowers is an animal after the reception. He's tough to bring down just even using that. Now that you can't use that, that guy is another level of yak player. It's like, oh, yeah, I'll take that guy on my team.
You mentioned that. I saw a bunch of people mention it the day the hip drop was banned, and I was like, yeah, guys like DJ Moore probably just got a big boost. Like,
Yep.
I don't know. To kind of tie a bow on all this, Nick, it is so funny looking at this, where I personally think that once again, DJ Moore's gotten underrated. I don't want to make this, yes, this is a Bears podcast. Yes, I'm going to be higher on plenty of Bears players than the consensus, because they're going to be guys that I think that people missed on, right? DJ Moore is a unique kind of wide receiver one, because as opposed to being the explicit focal point of the offense, it's more like there are things I believe, Nick, that DJ Moore does better than every corner can cover, sans about 5 guys. Like, there are too many of these games where if DJ Moore gets to do what DJ Moore does, Patrick Surtain can't do a damn thing about it. And that guy is dangerous. Whether the defense caters to it or not is their problem. If you don't, he will hang 230 yards on you. If you don't, he will Atlanta you. I mean, they let DJ run slot fades all the time. And to critique JT's definition, I don't really care if the defensive coordinator of the Atlanta Falcons is gonna do anything about DJ. I'd rather he doesn't, because he should. If he's watching any tape, he should be aware of where number 2 is on every single play. Yep. The Vikings were aware of where number 2 was on every single play. The Lions were aware of where number 2 was on every single play. You just got a couple of these defenses that said, nah, we're fine. We're going to cover him, and you can't. You could try, but you're not going to. And I say this, Nick, because whatever happens at the draft, I think that all this talk about how sick it would be to add Rome Odunze or Brock Bowers or all kinds of receiver weapons, trade up, add Malik Neighbors, is putting us into a space where we're forgetting that the Bears just had a guy walk into the field and on like less than 3,400 passing yards, catch your 1,300, 230 yards in a game where Fields left another 80 on the bone. Like 3 touchdowns in that game. That's not even a critique. It's more like, this guy is unbelievable. And Keenan Allen's his teammate. I am so amped up about where these Bears are going. This is a different Chicago Bears. I hope, Nick, that I get to I have to explain to my son when he's 3 to 5 years old that the Bears used to be terrible, because he doesn't know that about the Bears that he grows up watching. I hope that's where we're at. For all I know, we're getting there, but we'll see.
It's hard to not be excited. And it's not a pipe dream. You have 7, even if you have 7 wins last year and you had 3 bad losses, which even if you split that, you're at 8.5. And Caleb will be a better passer than Justin, I think, almost year 1. You had the 9th pick. You had Keenan Allen. Kevin Byard is a better safety than Eddie G. Like, you just go through it. You're like, yeah, we're going to be a good team next year. Like I'm not saying we're going to be fighting San Francisco, but like, we're going to be in almost every game, and we're favored in a lot of games. Like, it's tough to be like, yeah, we're going to win 5 games and Flus and Pulse are going to get fired. Like, so much bad would have to happen for that. Yeah. I mean, this is, like I said, this is what I've dreamed of. A quarterback getting surrounded. It's going to be awesome.
I think the funniest part about this, Nick, is that us Bears fans are conditioned for failure. We expect it at this point.
Right.
We've seen it enough, right? We've seen the Bears trade for Jay Cutler. And then it is as if the GM literally said, yeah.
Do you remember where you were when they traded for Jay Cutler?
I didn't actually get it yet. That was where I was just young enough where I knew it was a big deal. But
I knew exactly where I was.
That's awesome. I remember going to the Bears Pro Day, or like going to the Bears Pro Shop, because we traveled to go see like Soldier Field, et cetera, and they had taken a picture of Rex Grossman, and they had taped the number 6 over his shoulder sleeve instead of 8. That was as good as we got. Like, classic Bears moment. The point being, Nick, they traded for Jay, and it is as if Jerry Angelo said, that's it. Quarterbacks elevate their offense. I don't have to do anything else. And didn't. Then they traded for Mr. Trubisky. or not traded. They traded up for Mitch Trubisky years later. They gave him Kendall Wright, Sick Baylor Bears. They traded a 7th-round pick for our second best receiver that year in Dontrell Inman, who couldn't crack the Chargers roster. Like, they then spent money on Allen Robinson and Taylor Gabriel, which I think Allen's awesome, man. I'm not about to walk any of that back, but isn't it hilarious, Nick, looking back, they basically signed Calvin Ridley. They signed Curtis Samuel, and they said, bam, you're done. And we freaked out. We said, this is the best receiving unit we've seen in Chicago in 5 years. And we weren't wrong then. It's just crazy how low the standard was.
Oh, it's way too low.
And then Trey Burton, who was quickly emerging as a top 10 tight end in football, look it up, like just forgets how to play football, and the whole thing falls apart. So move on. We draft Justin Fields. We say, Justin, please save us. We beg him to pull the dying, rotting carcass of Ryan Pace's Bears along. He can't. Why would he have been able to? I mean, we didn't give him anything. We knew that. But now we're looking at Caleb Williams, potentially. I have to keep saying it, right? Now we're looking at a situation, Nick, that is so healthy. I'm a pessimist. I can't see the part where it's not good enough. Like, could it be better? It can always be better. You can always push to be the Bengals. Could the line be better? Yeah, definitely. Like, I would even love it if they had a badass center. That's just not really a great way to do that right now with a solution in place in 2024 that's going to be any better than what they have. But Nick, as far as from now to the future, there isn't a cavalcade of ifs and buts and maybes and if this works out thens. That's what we have to normally found our hope in. We have to say, if Cody Whitehair doesn't lose it yet, and if Khalil Mack stays healthy for the entire year, and if Taylor Gabriel takes another nice step forward, and if Anthony Miller remembers how to play football and tries again, and if Eddie Jackson doesn't get hurt this year, and if, like, the linebackers step forward, and if Justin takes an unprecedented year 3 leap that would take him from not good company to the best in the league, then we will make the playoffs. Normally we have to do all that just to be in the dance.
I mean, okay, let's go on the other side of this, okay? I know people are going to point to CJ Stroud, right? But let's do this quick. So they say Caleb's in some of the best quarterback prospects ever, right? You know, you got Elway up there, you got Manning up there, you got Luck up there, you got Trevor Lawrence up there, and Caleb, he's in that area, right?
Right.
You get one of the best quarterbacks prospects maybe ever in Chicago with weapons. I mean, I don't even have to go, I don't think, crazy projection here to say he could be the best quarterback in the division day one.
He won't be thought of as that. But by week 8, he could be the best quarterback in the division.
I mean,
Could's going to do a lot of work there, though. I'm optimistic.
Yeah, but you're also, I mean, you can say that about any of the quarterbacks in the division. I know I'm more pessimistic on some others than you are, but like, Jordan Love doesn't have the ceiling that Caleb has.
Nope.
Does he have the receivers?
No.
I mean, Jared Goff, right? He has a limited ceiling. We know this. He played well last year.
And that Detroit team is in desperate need of more receivers, and nobody's talking about it. Like, as I know we love Laporta. I get it. But we're looking at a team that is one receiver. And I think Jamo was awesome in school. He has not brought it to Detroit. And that
Josh Reynolds left in free agency.
Mm-hmm. They're hurting for receiver talent. It wouldn't surprise me if God, I hope they don't draft McConkey. Please.
That would hurt so bad. I do like what they did on their defensive line, getting DJ Reader, taking a flyer on Marcus Davenport was a smart move. Like they're I'm not saying Detroit's bad, y'all. I like Detroit. I'm glad Detroit's winning because they've been losing for so long. I respect it so much. But
the aim here, Nick, the aim is Caleb Williams is the best quarterback in the division entering the 2026 season. The hope is that he's the best 2020 or the best quarterback entering the 2025 season. The supernova would be he's the best quarterback in the division exiting the 2024
Yeah, but
season.
I get it. I know that's optimistic, but some of these guys hit the ground running. This isn't
Andrew Luck threw for 4,000 yards.
This isn't Mitch, man. You know what I mean?
It's not the same.
This is top of the notch guy who makes crazy plays with crazy. You're telling me Keenan Allen's not going to find holes in the zone when he doing scramble drill? You don't think DJ Moore's going to be like wide open? Hey, boom! Like, I mean, you can see it. And I'm not trying to stretch, be like, he's going to throw for 6,000 yards. Like, I'm not trying to go but he could be the best quarterback in the division. Like, it could be literally the first day.
Yep.
And it's not like, well, you're really hoping and dreaming. He's that level of a prospect with 2 studs.
Y'all. What I think is funniest, Nick, is that the tape is generally the tape with these guys. I mean, when you go watch Josh Allen now, with all of the wild stuff he does on a football field, you go turn on the Wyoming tape. That's pretty much what you see. He just leveled it up.
I loved him. He was hilarious at Wyoming. Do you just laugh watching it now?
Yes, it's hilarious. CJ Stroud plays like a robot playing quarterback. Well, he did the same thing at Ohio State. It's why most people were low-ish on him until that Georgia game, because we didn't see him expand the toolkit until he had to, because nobody made him do it, right? I say this because, Nick, as much as Caleb, I sure hope, would be statistically successful and successful in a win-loss category, the highlights are going to be off the chart. Mm-hmm. Like those moments where Caleb backs up in the pocket, evades a rusher, strides forward in the pocket, leaks out to his left, throws back across his body, Nick, and then you see the ball zip forward to number 13, pin him on the shoulder, and fall across the goal line. Soldier Field will explode. Like, those are going to be these moments where I imagine if this thing is going medium well, people are going to buy in at a level that they haven't bought in years.
Yep. I'm not sure, because again, I'm still sad about Justin, y'all. I am. I'm not sure people are ready for what's coming. Because I just pulled this one up too. Okay, if we're talking of like high end outcomes, right? Who's he comped to the most?
Mahomes.
Okay, Mahomes' first year starting, which I think Caleb's a more polished product than Mahomes was coming out. So you had to wait that rookie year, you know? He threw 50 touchdowns and 5,000 yards. Now, if he's light.
Second season, though, he did get a season just chilling on the bench.
No, yes. I know. But he wasn't a finished product. That's all I'm saying. But if you go light, 35 and 4,200. You know what I mean? Man, it's in the range.
That would be earth shaking.
But
if a Chicago rookie quarterback threw for 35 touchdowns and 4,200 yards in his rookie season, that would shake the very foundation that we sit on today.
Stroud was 4,123 in 15 starts.
Mm-hmm.
Or sorry, 23 and 41, in 15 starts. So what? And in terms of a pace, that's probably what, 4,600 at least, and it's probably 27 touchdowns.
With a team, man. with an offense that isn't what the Bears are giving him. And I mean, that's one part that, Nick, I do think is really hard about this. We could have a whole podcast segment about this, and I don't have the time for it, so we'll have to push it to another time. But
and you have Waldron, man, who's a top 12 play caller.
There's a whole thing to be made here, Nick, about how based on the supporting cast that the Bears are delivering, based on the supporting cast that the Bears are delivering, Caleb, and the personnel that is calling plays and designing plays, Thomas Brown is not nobody. Shane Waldron is not nobody. The offensive line staff is still here, so there's some level of cohesion within the run game, and these guys have mostly been playing together. There's actually reason to expect things from whoever's playing quarterback. Mm-hmm. It just so happens that quarterback is a rookie, which you don't expect things from. So there's sort of an immovable object and an unstoppable force colliding in between how you're supposed to even think about this. And the truth's got to be somewhere in the middle. There's just so much gray area that what even is the middle? The middle could be a lot of things.
Yep.
But if we get a medium high-end outcome, Nick, I think we're going to enter an age of Bears football that people only see in their Xbox and have for a decade. I mean,
Yes.
I that sounds fake, and I
No, it's
know
true.
that's fiery language, but like you are going to get to be the team where people actually pick you for the Super Bowl in the offseason. And you're going to get to be the team that somebody else calls disappointing because you only won 2 playoff games. Like you're going to get to say, "Oh, you're out of the playoffs? Bummer, that hasn't happened to us in like 6 years."
You know, the other one too, Robert, is like when the talking heads, you know, when they do their team picks, and they'll be like, "Oh well, okay, Bears because they have Caleb," and like they go on down the list because that's what other teams get. We don't forget that. It's like, well, they don't have the quarterback. That's all they talk about. But we're gonna have the quarterback.
Man, Nick, what you got coming out this week?
How can we even think about anything else after all that, man?
You know what I mean?
I have that podcast, y'all. You know, check out Chris Harris. That's the Harris Football Podcast. You hear all my thoughts, a lot of in-depth stuff. I mean, there's even stuff I couldn't share on there, but it was really fun discussion. And then I have a Football Guys video coming out on a breakdown on Jaden Daniels. Just a short video, but you guys can check that one out as well.
Nice. And as usual, guys, I'll be putting something on DBB nearly every day, if not every day outright. And until next time, Bears fans, thank you guys so much for listening. Stay tuned as we do more draft stuff. We are going to be doing a live draft show. Nick, you and I will figure out the logistics of what you can and can't make, but we'll be live. We'll have Jeff Hughes there too. It'll just be a big old party as we watch whatever unfolds before us. Until then, Bears fans, bear down. Thanks so much for bearing with us.